your background, my friend, and then we'll get into to some topics here. I think Jay has just joined us, so go ahead and give us a little bit on yourself, my friend, on your
I'm
background.
a cartoonist, illustrator from Comic Book Times. I used to work on a show called The Tick. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's
Yes, yes.
yeah. I've worked for Marvel and DC and did a lot of commercial illustration, and then yeah, and then I've written a lot of stories for different things.
Awesome,
So
awesome stuff, awesome stuff.
yeah.
I think Jay has joined us. Good day to you, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing okay.
Now we've got Michael Patrick Dugan with us today. You got any questions for our friend here?
Yeah, Michael, how'd you switch from DC comic books to the myths and monsters book?
Yeah, I always had sort of a long term, like so many comic book dorks. I had a great deal of interest in mythology going way back, and so I also really loved Art Nouveau, which is sort of like a foundational art form for comic books. So the two just sort of came together one day in my mind, and I thought that would be really cool. And so I drew a picture of uh, you know what? I drew a picture of Aphrodite, and then just got to thinking about it, and was like, "Geez, that was super fun." And I wonder if there's any way out there I could draw this, for money, you know. And and then yeah, my agent told me about the adult coloring book trend that's been exploding everywhere, and I thought we'd give
Guilty.
it a shot. Yeah,
I like adult coloring book. So
yeah,
one of
me
your
too.
books is a soft short story, and then the other one is the coloring book, right?
Sorry.
What one of the myth and monsters is a coloring book, and the other one's a short story.
Yeah. Well, what happened was, so I went through the series of the Myths and Monsters coloring book, and the idea behind that was to draw all these beautiful pictures, and then also I started researching the legends of each of the characters that are in there, and I wanted to try to bring something to it that was just a little different from what you would normally get, because you could find out their legends kind of anywhere. So I started putting together notes um, on different like anthropological studies about these cultures and characters and where they came from. And so each page of the coloring book has like a little bit of that in it too. But then after I was done, there was still an awful lot of data, and stories, and there was a bunch of other stuff. And so in some cases I had written a few, like rewritten the legends in sort of my own voice, trying that out. And I went back through it, had it edited, and made a Kindle version of that, just to sort of put it out there and see how that would go. And that's also gotten a lot of great response. So
Wait,
Awesome stuff. We've got Michael Patrick Dugan with us today. He joins us live here on our Sunday radio broadcast, and we also have the great Jay Bird Wells with us today. And uh, Michael, going through and doing all the drawing and doing different things. What attracted you to this form of art and everything in your life? What kind of wanted you to get into this?
in school, when I was studying to get my degree in painting, um, I kind of stumbled across an artist named Gustav Klimt, and he was one of the great Art Nouveau masters, and I loved his work. And then I kind of found like a bunch of others from that time period who were also incredible. Alphonse Mucha, amongst them, some of the more famous ones. And so I always admired that style of art, and I always wanted to, of course, I mean, we're coming at about 100 and some odd years after the decline of that particular style, but I always wanted to do it too. I always just loved it, and So, that's kind of where it came from. It was sort of like if you had a choice to draw in any style that you could draw in, what would you choose? And that was
Yeah.
it. And I think that the Art Nouveau style works particularly well for coloring books because it requires a lot of side details and little extra things. In modern day illustration, you don't really see so much of that in terms of like just out there. You don't see it in advertising. It's not called for very often now. But,
Yeah. Yeah.
but in a coloring book, it worked really well, I thought. So
Awesome stuff.
Is
Awesome stuff.
that the medieval style then?
actually, so like Art Nouveau comes from just prior to the 20th century. So it would be the end of the 19th century. So and it peaked just before World War II, really, like before the Great Depression, really, and so it kind of like hit from the late 1890s up until the 1920s or so, and it was a huge deal. One of the reasons it was so big was because at that time we had certain advances in printing presses, and there was a number of these illustrators sort of were in a position to take advantage of that through like getting jobs as commercial illustrators, and so a lot of advertising was heavily affected by it at that time. And of course, we didn't. The printing presses they had then were nothing compared to what we have now. But but
Yes.
it felt like at the time it just felt like you could get out there really fast, and so it exploded, and like Art Nouveau is the precursor to Art Deco, and Art Deco is sort of the more famous variation of it. But
Very much so. Yeah.
yeah, and then modernism came after that. So so it grew. There's sort of a direct line of the children of those artists intellectually, I guess. So that made sense, right, Jay?
Okay. Yeah, it made sense. I'll have a confession. I'm fighting a migraine, so our brain's
Oh.
kind of off today. But I still have some questions. Um, so are you planning on writing another book?
Yeah, the thing was that I had like I wanted to put out a coloring book of mythology, and I thought that was cool. I ended up drawing enough of them kind of for about three, and because I couldn't decide which ones to use, and I loved them all. So my agent actually, I sent it to her and just said, what do you think? Which one do you think which ones should I use in the book? And so she suggested maybe we should do all three instead. But there's another one I'm going to put out in about a month, and we'll see, how that goes.
Yeah.
So, and then I'm also writing a couple of sort of fantasy murder mysteries as well. So
That's pretty
Thought I
awesome.
remembered mentioning something about that.
yeah, yeah. So yeah, the murder mysteries are going to be in the form of novellas, and they're a blend of sort of they're kind of akin to if Jane Austen, J.R.R. Tolkien, and Agatha Christie got together and had a book baby. So
That's pretty awesome.
That's like I had a Kansas geologist say about my mermaid book. He said, check it out. If Clive Cussler, David Baldacci, and Monty Python got together in a bar and wrote a book, it'd be The Tale Begins.
that is a great review right there.
That's definitely my favorite. But
Yeah.
your three guys that you just mentioned, they're just like those three I just mentioned, where they're kind of opposite, but yet they just bring out this huge individuality when you stick them all three together.
I think so. The one thing is, the crazy thing about those three authors is there's an odd similarity in the pace at which they write, and the like in terms of It's sort of like this, I don't know, there's something very similar about the three of them in some weird way. And
Yeah.
I always I always enjoyed all three of them very much, and then I realized I was really enjoying the same thing about all three. And then I thought, oh, gee, I guess I'm not as diverse a reader as I thought. But you know, yeah. So I always wanted to try this and see if it could kind of come off, and it's a series of murder mysteries that'll take place in a time very akin to when Jane Austen would have written it in the Edwardian era, and then. But they're murder mysteries, which would make it very Agatha Christie. But there's also an undercurrent of sort of a Goblin King sort of scenario, which is very akin to J.R.R. Tolkien at the same time. And so,
definitely gonna have to let me know when it's out.
Definitely. So that one, the first of those is actually we should be releasing those within just 2 or 3 weeks, I think. So.
You've got one fan already.
Oh, thank you. Well, so do you, by the way.
Michael Patrick Dugan with us today, joins us live. Also, Jaybird Wells with us today on Skype. They join us today for our Sunday radio broadcast. And if you're listening to us live on the stream, we are taping this broadcast for our Kansas State Fair coverage. And we're going to have Michael's interview up on our website, JiggyJaguar.com. The full show, of course, will air during September. But Michael, how did you get involved with the Tick project?
I had you know what? There was a group of us who kind of came together at the same time on that. I back then in the late 1980s, early 1990s, the comic book industry, particularly the independent comic book industry, was going through sort of a revolution of style and content. And there were a number of books out that kind of were like humorous books about superheroes. I had one myself called The Atomic Clown or Fudang. And then there was like Concrete Shoes, and there were a couple of others. We all existed alongside the Tick. The Tick became very famous as a comic book, and it was doing its thing. And then the guy who created it, his name is Ben Edlund, he outlived us all. So his book kept going and got more successful, and the rest of us tried valiantly and failed one by one. And as we failed, he would approach us and say to us, hey man, we have similar ways of looking at the world. Would you like to come work on the Tick TV show with me? And so one by one, we all joined him there, and it was great, and just an incredible learning experience, just strictly from a comic book to animation sort of scenario of learning about the world and how things work in television and how things work in publishing, because each of us have a different story, but they all end in our book ending terribly, so yeah, like a grim, sad ending. I was fortunate I was not hugely in debt by the end of it, but but it was good, and the Tick was just incredible. So, and Ben Edlund is a genius, so that was also great to be nearby.
Was the TV
Did you
show?
Ever do any...
Yeah, go ahead, Jay. Go ahead, jump in there.
Hey, Michael, did you ever do any tours for the Tick?
Did I do any? Sorry.
Tours, like go to a Comic-Con as a guest or anything?
Oh yeah, many times. Definitely.
Did you ever any cosplayers do the Tick?
I have, back at the time that the Tick was really big, there just weren't quite so many cosplayers going on. It just wasn't as a common back then. Usually if you had cosplayers, they were going to be much, much more famous. I think a couple of last year I went to Stan Lee's Comic-Con and ran into a guy who was cosplaying the Tick, and that was pretty cool. So, but I think that's about the first time I've ever face-to-face seen it, myself.
I think I saw one 3 years ago.
Yeah, they're uncommon because, the Tick is sort of, it's come back a little bit in a new incarnation most recently, but the classic Tick is, that's 20 years old. So
Do you think the TV show was and everything was kind of ahead of its time, or
yeah, definitely. I mean, I really do think so. I mean, there was sort of a like the Greatest American Hero and a couple of other television shows from the 1970s and 80s that sort of depicted superheroes in a humorous light were probably precursors to it, um, but it definitely like it saw the absurd side of superheroes. The idea that every hero has their own theme, and like it's a whole like they're here because no one knows why. No one knows why you would dress up that way, and to fight crime and battle evil, and and it picked apart a few very distinct tropes inside the comic book world that really were not being sort of tackled at the time. I mean, there, I don't remember which story it was, but one of them went on about how like one of the characters is like a female superhero who battles crime, but she basically is wearing like this tiny, tiny little skimpy bikini outfit, and people are waving knives at her, and and one of the characters asked her, like, why would you choose to dress this way, in those giant high heels with the extremely, tight, weird outfit that doesn't give you full coverage? And she was like, oh, it's freedom of movement, So it's just
freedom of movement?
I have freedom of movement in this tiny bikini and these giant high heels, so.
I can't imagine any heel to be free of movement.
Exactly, but in like the comic book world, oftentimes historically, you get these illustrators who sort of they're just there trying to draw something really cool looking, and the logic behind it has gone out the window, and so like Tick sort of brought a little bit of that to the foreground and pointed it out, and in its own absurd way. And I mean, and the guy who created it just has a distinct mind as well. So, it was kind of more than that even, but I think he just enjoyed just being completely absurd. So.
we've got Michael Patrick Dugan with us today. Jay, jump in there, my friend.
Do you have a fan page that people can sit there and find you on?
Absolutely. If you look for me on Facebook, it's called M. Patrick Dugan.
Duggan.
Yeah. And then you can also find me on Twitter at MICDUGGAN. Or Instagram.
Or Instagram. No, YouTube.
Instagram's the best one because you can go in there and take a look at so many wonderful pictures. So.
And let's not forget Amazon for myths and monsters.
Exactly. So. Yeah, and if you buy a copy of the coloring book, don't forget to write a review.
Well, you know me, I'll probably be taking pictures of it.
Oh, that would be great.
I might have to sit there and hire you to illustrate my sequel.
Hey, there you go. We got a chance to work together.
No kidding, that would be awesome. Where do you want to be in 10 years? What do you see yourself doing in 10 years?
Well, I'm really hoping what'll happen is I'll continue to write and draw things, and I have like a couple of series of novels that I'm going to try and put out in the next year or so. I'd love for those to take off, and just all the usual hopes and dreams there, But the great thing would be to just be full time on just writing and drawing all the time, and doing that. That would be the most amazing thing. And and I got a couple books I want to make sure happen. So it'd be great to just have them done and out. So.
Are you waiting on an editor? The lovely world of editing.
That is an incredible world right there. I have to say, I got like 2 years ago, I had written this one novel and I was very keen to get it out the door right away. And I was like, oh gosh, I'll just put it out through the Amazon self-publish. And then I thought, oh, you know what? Maybe I should really just try to wait, get a literary agent again, and go the old route, and the classic route. And so I did, and then she was like, oh, and by the way, my literary agent is a genius. So she's like, you should wait and you should get it edited and go through a whole process. And I have, and the book has turned out significantly better. And it's called Oliver Goodwick. It hasn't come out yet, um, and it's on its way through, and it's big, full blown YA novel, magic and stuff. And it's so funny, the waiting on editors, just the waiting thing. It's kind of the worst, but the best product comes from it, and so patience, I suppose, right? That's the lesson.
Yeah. Are you like most entertainment people where you have to have a day job on top of writing?
Yeah, I think that there have been times where writing has been the day job, many times. But and I've written for a number of, like, for comic books and for things like that, and when that's happening and it's great and you're really in that world. But then like most people, you find there are times when you're just sort of not doing that. So I've done other things too, like I'll do website design and building things, whatever you got to do, so to get by.
About that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So
So you're kind of a
I figured
renaissance
that you
man.
had other outlets for your creative talent.
yeah. Yeah, let's hope. Like I'd really like to just write full time, but that would be the best. But I mean, that's like stating the obvious right there, isn't it? So
Yeah, I know that feeling. Did I cut you off, Jiggy?
No, I was just saying he's a renaissance man. He knows how to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Most creative people are. I mean, they can't just stay with one thing.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those deals where I think you find you either hit something that lasts for your life, or you're forced to learn new things and continue to grow, and which, by the way, sucks. So, but it's good, but it's also, it's good to know how to do a lot of things. I know how to fix, like change a tire on a car. That's good. So, at least there's that too.
That's better than most city folk.
Yeah, well, living in Los Angeles, I got to tell you, there's a lot of changing of your own tires that happens. So,
Oh man, lots of nails and stuff. Because you're in California, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles. So, in the old city, in the Midtown.
Well, Michael, as we wrap up here with you, my friend, where can we connect with you online again and everything?
You can come to Facebook, and I have a page called M. Patrick Dugan on there. That's a regular page. You can also find my website is mpatrickdugan.com, where I'll have updates and things like that. And Instagram is a good one, MIC Dugan. So, and then yeah, I guess those are probably the best ones. I don't know about you, but I kind of have started to avoid Twitter for the moment. So, it's just too confusing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
I'll have to find you on Twitter.
yeah. So yeah, so it's good though. So
Well,
thank you so much for having me.
yes.
Let's not forget Myths and Monsters on Amazon.
Myths and Monsters grown-up coloring book on Amazon. Definitely.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Michael, I appreciate you making time for us today. Jay, I will be back with you here in just a couple seconds. I've got to call our next guest, but we're going to take a quick timeout here, couple-minute timeout, get some things reset. And, Michael, I appreciate you being with us today, my friend.
Hey, thank you guys so much for having me, Jiggy and Jay. It was such a pleasure.
Definitely, definitely. And we get a chance to actually talk to you, whereas some of our guests on the Sunday program, we pretty much just have to yell over people. So this has been fun.
I played the fifth.
Well, we'll talk to you later, Michael, and I'll talk to you, Jay, here in about probably a minute and a half. I'll be right back. We are going to take a break here on the Sunday radio broadcast, and when we come back, we have got more coming up. Right now, it's another day. Frank Cole coming up right now.